Practical Anarchy, a guide to self-determination. Dicky. Preface. There was a well-worn saying on the traveller fields that if you don't know where you're going, any road will do. The trouble is, if we look at where we are going as a species, the road seems less like a leafy lane, and more like the M25 at rush hour, belching fumes, locked in jams and endlessly circling. I didn't set out to write a manual for tearing down the traffic signs of capitalism, but after decades of living, reading, listening and arguing, in pubs, in fields, in lecture halls and on festival rigs, I found myself with a head full of questions that wouldn't shut up. This book is one attempt to answer them. At its heart, Practical Anarchy is about freedom, and not the hollow kind politicians wheel out in speeches, the freedom to vote for same parties, to choose between the same brands of tat, or to sweat for wages just to keep a roof overhead. It's about the deeper, riskier, more rewarding freedom that comes when people refuse to be ruled. It's about the possibilities that emerge when we take responsibility for each other, when we trust cooperation over competition, when we imagine lives not dictated by money, bosses or priests. The word anarchy still makes many people think of chaos, smashed windows or scruffy kids in black hoodies. Yet beneath the headlines there is a history of thinkers, organisers, rebels and dreamers who have argued that humans do not need states, kings or prime ministers to make life work. What we need is trust, creativity, stubborn refusal at times and solidarity that runs deeper than any flag. This book doesn't pretend to have all the answers. I'm not a social scientist nor a trained historian of political theory. I'm simply someone who has studied physics, danced in muddy fields, lived off-grid, and spent too many hours staring into campfires wondering why on earth we let the world be run this way. What follows is a mix of research and lived experience, reflection and laughter, outrage and reggae bass lines. And yes, I'm getting older. The knees don't like dancing all night anymore. The mind is still lively, but I know the job of building a freer world will fall to those who will live longer in it. That's not a bad thing. One role of the older generation is to pass down stories, knowledge and warnings, and to get out of the way when the time comes. The book moves through a number of central threads. One is that the state is the problem, not the solution. We're taught that government is what keeps us civilised, yet history suggests otherwise, showing that states wage wars, enforce hierarchies and divide people in order to stay in power. Another thread is money as a system of control. It is not just coins and notes, but the entire edifice of wage slavery, debt, banking, and the endless growth economy that keeps us locked into the hamster wheel. Religion and politics are examined as twin faiths. One promises salvation after death, the other promises it after the next election. Both demand obedience, and both keep people in their place. Running alongside all this is a commitment to examining alternative ways of living. Squats, co-ops, Zapatistas, Rojava, Transition Town, New Age travellers, all offering glimpses of how people can organise without masters. Finally, the book pushes towards the future, asking whether these glimpses can be scaled up. Could a country, even the world, run without states, money and domination? The chapters follow a rough arc. We begin with the question of definitions. What does anarchy mean, and why has it been so misunderstood? Then comes the history up to 1900, moving from the Paris Commune and the New Model Army to anarchist feminism and the French Revolution. 20th century follows, with Spain, the Russian Revolution, fascism, punk and squats, all jostling alongside the rise of the internet. From there the focus shifts to critique. The problem with the state, the problem with capitalism and money, the problem with religion and the trap of party politics. The second half of the book takes a more constructive turn. We imagine life beyond money, look at how anarchism can be lived now in everyday acts, and finally sketch a vision and a roadmap, one that dares to suggest a systematic way of getting from here to there, from the cracked pavements of late capitalism to a world beyond domination. It's not a neat academic structure. Some ideas return, echo and overlap, like bass lines drifting through different songs. That's deliberate. Anarchism isn't linear. It is recursive, marked by experiments, setbacks, leaps, cracks and continuities. You'll notice examples revisited in different lights: Spain, Rojava, co-ops, travellers, festivals. This is because they hold lessons too rich to be confined to one chapter. I've worn a few hats in my time: professor, DJ, traveller, writer, addict, survivor. I've taught measurement theory to engineering students, then stumbled into fields to spin ska and reggae. I spent months building rolling homes, wiring up solar panels, or arguing politics round wood stoves. I've been through trauma and recovery. I've watched friends not make it through. None of this is written as a boast, just to make it clear that my so-called authority doesn't come from grants, citations, or peer-reviewed journals. It comes from muddling through life, asking awkward questions, and reading widely enough to see connections others might miss. It also comes from the people I've shared my time with, travellers, punks, activists, academics, neighbours, students and family, all of whom have taught me things more valuable than any textbook. And yes, I'm older now. I can't pretend to be on the front lines of building this future. The next generations will need to do that, with fresher legs, newer tunes and sharper tools. My hope is simply to leave behind a map of where we've been and a sketch of where we could go. The tone of the book is serious but never humourless. Anarchism without humour would be a grim religion of its own. Expect some gallows humour too. Living under capitalism often feels like a bad joke at our expense. As I once said behind the decks, if you don't laugh, you cry, and crying fucks up the mix. I don't expect readers to agree with everything here. Some will find it utopian, others too cautious. Some will want more theory, others more practical instruction. That's fine. What matters is not agreement, but the willingness to ask new questions about your own life, your community, the possibilities of change. Could you grow food with neighbours? Could you start or join a co-op? Could you organise without waiting for leaders? Could you imagine a society where borders are lines on maps, not fences with guards? If this book helps even a handful of people to say yes, maybe yes, to those questions, it will have done its job. This book is stitched together from research, stories, history, philosophy, music, mud, fire, and a lifetime of watching the circus roll on. It's not perfect nor comprehensive, but it's honest. Treat it as an invitation, not a sermon. Dance with it, argue with it, laugh at it, scribble in the margins. Then more importantly, live it. In gardens, streets, schools, kitchens, forests, festivals and futures not yet built. To help along the way, the book closes with an appendix. Glossary, list of abbreviations. The appendix offers a concise timeline for anarchist moments for readers who want to see the long arc of resistance at a glance. The glossary explains terms that can be misread or misunderstood so that no one is shut out by jargon. Both are intended as tools, not final words, but stepping stones for further exploration. And remember, you don't need to wait for the revolution to be declared. You can start now. You can do what the fuck you want.